making a lot of news, about Hunter Biden's lawyer stepping down because he might be brought into some indictment charges later as a witness. Who cares with what's going on in this country? Why do I care about that? I don't. I'm going to read something to you, America, from the Durham report. From the Durham report, that's right. Based on the review of Crossfire Hurricane and related intelligence activities, we conclude that the department and the FBI failed to uphold their important mission of strict fidelity to the law in connection with certain events and activities described in this report. As noted, former FBI attorney Kevin Kleinsmith committed a crime by fabricating language in an email that was material to the FBI obtaining a FISA surveillance order. In other instances, FBI personnel working in that same FISA application displayed at best a cavalier attitude towards accuracy and completeness. FBI personnel also repeatedly disregarded important requirements that they continue to seek renewals of that FISA surveillance while acknowledging both then and in hindsight they didn't genuinely believe there was probable cause to believe that the target was knowingly engaged in clandestine intelligence activities on behalf of a foreign power. Our investigation also revealed that senior FBI personnel displayed a serious lack of analytical rigor towards the information they received, especially information received from politically affiliated persons and entities. This information in part triggered and sustained Crossfire Hurricane and contributed to the subsequent need for special counsel Mueller's investigation. In particular, there was significant reliance on investigative leads provided or funded directly or indirectly by Trump's political opponents. The department did not adequately examine or question these materials and the motivations of those providing them, even when, at about the same time, the director of the FBI and others learned of significant and potentially contrary information. Throughout the duration of Crossfire Hurricane, facts and circumstances that were inconsistent with the premise that Trump or persons associated with the Trump campaign were involved in a collusive or conspiratorial relationship with the Russian government were ignored or simply assessed away. Indeed, from even before the opening of Crossfire Hurricane, some of those most directly involved in the subsequent investigation had expressed their open disdain for Trump, asked about when they would open an investigation on Trump, asserted that they would prevent Trump from becoming president. As discussed throughout this report, our investigations revealed that the stated basis for opening a full investigation to determine whether individuals associated with the Trump campaign were witting and or coordinating activities with the government of Russia was seriously flawed. Again, the FBI's failure to critically analyze information that ran counter to the narrative of a Trump-Russia collusive relationship exhibited throughout Crossfire Hurricane is extremely troublesome. In other words, Hillary Clinton, the Democrat Party, their lawyers, and the Obama administration interfered with the election of 2016 to try and stop Donald Trump from being elected. Nobody was charged with false claims of fraud. Nobody was charged with attempting to interfere with the election. Nobody was charged with a RICO violation. Nobody was charged with a damn thing, except that one junior lawyer for falsifying an email, whiting out something and putting the opposite meaning when they saw the FISA application. What about it, Mr. Producer? Nobody was charged. Not at the federal level, not at the state level, not at any level. And reporters got Pulitzer Prizes for regurgitating what the state party, the Democrat Party, was leaking to the state media. Nobody was indicted for anything. The Democrats have challenged election after election on the floor of the House, in the courts, and elsewhere. Elsewhere. Every Republican president who gets elected is illegitimate. George W. Bush was said to be illegitimate. Donald Trump was said to be illegitimate. And now, the criminalization of this entire process is shocking. Chris Christie said today, and of course whatever he says is so crucially important, they have a right to make these legal challenges, and when they're over, that's the end of it. No, big boy, that's not the way it works. Congress makes the final decision. Not a district court, not a circuit court, not even the Supreme Court. Congress makes the final decision. Even if Congress, in the Bush v. Gore case, had decided it would ignore the Supreme Court and it would count ballots, would count electors a different way, Congress would prevail. Period. So it's not what the legal process says. It's what the political process and the constitutional process says. Congress has the final say. Congress decides if there's fake electors or there's not fake electors. Congress decides if a close election goes one way or another. You don't criminalize these decisions. Presidents are free to tell somebody, see if you can find another 11 or 12,000 votes. It's not assumed that that's a crime. Presidents are free to contact secretaries of state, governors, state legislators, asking them to see what they can do to reverse the election. It doesn't mean they're committing a crime. None of this is criminal. False claims of fraud? You want to hear false claims of fraud, America? We would have to open Yankee Stadium and ship all the politicians in Washington, D.C. to Yankee Stadium who will be charged with false claims of fraud. And unfortunately, I've had to do this before, and I won't do it as long as it is. It goes on for 12, 13 minutes. Just a few minutes of this. Democrats. In every recent presidential election where Republicans have won, Democrats making false claims of fraud. Go.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's the real
what I'm
thing.
scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president or elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
The one thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina.
I object because people are horrified.
He's an illegitimate president.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
So stop. What about all the false claims of fraud? What about it, America? What about the conspiracies to obstruct an election? What about the conspiracy to prevent Donald Trump, the rightful winner, from taking office? What about it? What about all the Democrat lawyers involved in pushing the Russia collusion argument? What about them? How come none of them are facing sanctions or disbarment? How come none of them have been charged We have the Durham report that lays it out. Chapter and verse. If Fannie Willis, or whatever the hell her name is, Fannie Willis, if her charges are legitimate, if Smith's charges are legitimate, how is it that we just realized that these are campaign crimes? How is it that Joseph Kennedy Sr. wasn't charged with a phalanx of crimes and didn't do prison time? How is it that John Kennedy, oh yes, John Kennedy, who stole the nomination from Hubert Humphrey and Lyndon Johnson, and then stole the presidency from Richard Nixon in Cook County, in West Virginia, in Texas, how is it that John Kennedy wasn't indicted if these, in fact, are long-cherished criminal charges that would be applied to any party and president? How is it that Lyndon Johnson didn't go to prison after stealing an election, first for the House of Representatives, then for the Senate? How is that possible? And how is it possible that Hillary Clinton, who destroyed 30,000 emails, cell phones, mishandled classified information, made false statements about it, obstructed justice, isn't in federal prison? How is it that Bill Clinton, Mr. Classified Videos in the socks drawer, how is it that he's not in federal prison? How is it possible that Joseph Kennedy Sr., John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, Hillary Clinton, and Bill Clinton aren't all in federal or state prison, or weren't? We know the answer to this. Used to be an understanding between the two parties, the party in power and the party out of power. Don't criminalize these elections. Politics is rough. Politics has to be resolved politically. And ultimately, for president and vice president, it has to be resolved by Congress. You don't take garden variety criminal statutes, or even criminal statutes that are ridiculous, like the Klan statute, the Enron statute, the espionage statute, and use those in perverse ways to go after your opponents. False claims of fraud? Do you realize how many politicians would be doing time in prison? Find me some votes? That's now a crime? Attempting to persuade state legislators to appoint a new slate of electors? Just the attempt? Will wind up with lawyers being indicted? Conspiracy to change the outcome of an election? That's what all election challenges are. She even goes across state lines, does Fannie, and Arizona and Pennsylvania and so forth, claiming they did the same thing in those states, that there's this grand mob conspiracy. And it's so big, we're going to throw all 19 defendants together. Let them figure it out. Sounds like Iran, doesn't it? Iran.